Hello, everybody. This is the last segment, so we'll soon go to El Sonte. So let's start. Both your companies are unique in a way that, given that you have onboarded big clients in El Salvador, your experience will be very valuable to our participants here, I think. Thank you for being here and sharing this with us. We often hear about how the Bitcoin law entered into force a little more than 2 months ago here in El Salvador. But the fact is that the announcement of the law came on June 6th. That is almost 6 months ago. The buzz has been going on ever since for all companies that have businesses related to this. That is the perspective from which I would like us to have this conversation, a little timeline. And of course, us and the audience, we are under an agreement, of course, that this is a perspective is from your side. And it's, in a way, you'll be talking about for the merchants, but it's going to be from your side. So, first, could you share something about your clients, which industries, sizes here in El Salvador?
Sure. Hey, guys. Thank you for inviting me here. I want to start saying that we have around 30-ish something clients. About half of them are international or global brands, and the other are more local brands. And we have the experience of different sizes. You're going to see when we look at the dashboards, you're going to see different sizes of transactions. Some transactions are fairly large, and I think that's impressive for Lightning, especially since. As you were saying, we had basically a short amount of time to actually get the services up and running. And I mean, these are transactions that are, $2,000, $3,000 in size. So fairly large for Lightning, right? And they've been going perfectly well with our service, and the experience has been amazing. But as you were saying, when the law was announced, we spent like the better part of the 3 months educating, and the last, let's say, the last 10% was more implementing and actually getting the payment solution out there, because there was a lot of questions of how things were gonna go, how things were gonna be implemented and regulation and stuff like that. So for sure, but it's been amazing.
Yeah, from our side, when the law was announced, we had two assumptions. We thought there were a few players already in town, established, so we focused on the multinational big companies, and we are also confident that we could provide a solution at higher scale. So naturally, the clients that we got first are the big ones, like you guys are aware, the McDonald's. There's a few mobile operators around here too. Basically multinational brands, American brands. But what was interesting is, as things came out, the time passed, small businesses and medium businesses saw that we were powering their payment stack. And honestly, today I lost the count how many merchants we have overall. We have about 20, 15 like big brands as well, but then now we have around 3-4 merchants a day signing up on the platform. So it ranges a lot in regards to the size. In regards to the business, we do from B2B, from the carts that you see on the street selling stuff, the old sales, we power that, to mobile networks, to food, to online shopping, just a little bit of everything, to remittances, everything.
The McDonald's case is very interesting because it's what people do when they come to El Salvador. They go to the McDonald's in San Benito and they film themselves while they are doing it, so it's become viral. The announcement, you kind of already answered this, that how did the announcement of the Bitcoin law affect your business? You kind of already answered, but if there's something else you want to add?
Do you want to start?
Sure, I'll go first then. Well, at the time, it was a surprise for everyone. We quickly got together and say, all right, this is an opportunity here. This is an opportunity for the Bitcoin industry to prove itself that we've been building for years. This is an experiment. We want to make sure this experiment doesn't fail. So that's what we work for today. And like I mentioned, we attacked the big companies. Mostly it's Julie's effort. She's here in the audience. She did the whole back and forth with all these big companies. And trust me, it was a whole process. Like you mentioned, education was definitely the issue. This was very fast, right? The law was passed very fast. businesses that have no idea what Bitcoin was. It's risky, it's this, it's for crime, it's for that, and compliance and this. So that was the biggest challenge to get these merchants on board. But the great thing is things have settled, and today these merchants are actually trying to expand these operations to other countries. So this is something that gives us like a positive sentiment. Like what was something in the beginning that was deemed as risky, today is just part of their normal operations, and they're thinking ahead in the future and say, oh, where can we port these to other countries here in South and Central America?
Yeah, I would add that it just, the way that the law was passed so quickly, it generated a lot of uncertainty. And we had, the good thing is we were here, boots on the ground, talking to people, teaching them as much as possible. And it was amazing. Like the good thing is, in some senses, Bitcoin, you know, companies generally think that Bitcoin, especially those days, that Bitcoin was like the on-chain, right? Transactions were going to be 10 minutes long, and you would have to pay a lot of fees and stuff like that. And then we started teaching them about Lightning. So Lightning has been, in some sense, like the killer app, the thing that has been making retail and commerce possible in El Salvador. And it's amazing to watch the experience of Lightning, like when people actually see the payment going through. Like, but I mean, we're all Bitcoiners, and we've seen this, and it's amazing. But when you see someone, when you look in the eyes of someone that hasn't seen it, and kind of doesn't believe in it anyway, and they see the first transaction, it's just it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. So that's great.
If I can add, just you mentioned that you guys had boots on the grounds and doing sales. For us, it was completely the opposite. This is my first time in El Salvador doing business. So this was done over video, which makes things harder because you need trust, you need credibility, but things in the end worked out. But I think it's just an interesting aspect. And regarding the technical decision about on-chain and Lightning, we decided from the beginning we're not even teach about on-chain, and today all the merchants here in El Salvador just use Bitcoin. Lightning is Bitcoin, period.
Thank you. As you know, I'm the country manager of Bitrefill here in El Salvador, and it was kind of fun when we tried to talk to some of the companies here about everything. And as soon as you mentioned the word Bitcoin, they got something, you know, bad in their eyes. So can you share some of your initial meetings, the experiences you had with them?
Oh yeah,
in the beginning.
We had a few. It was interesting, and it's kind of, as Alex had his questions. It was Bitcoin is tied to a political decision. So there was a gut reaction to, well, how is the government going to win? How are they actually, you know, turning this into money in their pockets? And we tried to explain, you know, the core of Bitcoin, and started like going back.
And the benefits.
But we had some, you know, some IT people just being extremely skeptical, and I think we've slowly but surely made them believers. It's the experience that we've had until now, for sure.
From our side, I would say it came from the top, mostly legal compliance and legal. People they tie Bitcoin to illicit activities. That's what you see on the news. So they were kind of forced to accept this payment method. They were forced because if you're big enough, you have to accept it, period. That was the law. And they were like, how does that gonna fit our current operations? Are we gonna do like our AML and our compliance, because Bitcoin is pseudonymous? You know, how can we navigate through this? So there was a lot of education that was necessary. And then the accounting part. People didn't know that you can convert, let's say, Bitcoin to dollars. They thought they had to hold Bitcoin, or they didn't have both options. You know, it was all you needed was a little bit of education, some patience from our side and their side as well to listen to what we were ranting about. But in the end, it just worked out, and it's working out.
I don't know if you guys kind of remember, like because I remember a few lines like, oh yeah, the law is accepted, but we don't have the regulation yet. We don't have the rules. How is it going to work? It was complicated because the actual rules came out actually several months later. Like actually a few days before it was a week before the September 7th. So it was it was kind of hell in some sense, because we had to navigate through those, through the new rules, through the new ways that they wanted to accept Bitcoin and how that was going to work. But the good thing is, we adapt quickly, right? As Bitcoiners, we adapt quickly, and we find ways to actually teach people and to make the merchants feel safe about what they were doing. And that we wanted that to be part of our experience and their experience as well as using Lightning. And
I would say touching on that, it was definitely a kind of messy process to even like be legal here in El Salvador. There was no forms, no documents. You don't know what you have to submit to work here legally. So that was a little bit rough in the beginning. And at this time, it's already the 7th. Things need to be out. So especially these public companies are like, they have a risk. They're associating themselves with a partner that they don't even know if they have legal authorization to operate in the country. So I think that things settled down when BCR kind of like started to look at, the Banco Central started to look at the process, and then eventually released on their website, like, these are the companies that are legally authorized to operate here. Then these guys like, all right, now we're good. We're down to do marketing. We're down to do this. We're down to do everything. But in the beginning, as a public traded company, trying to protect yourself to like tied to like something that might not be legal. So that was definitely a concern of our clients as well.
Yeah, because the next question I had was about the challenges that you had during the integration phase. So you would say that a big picture, maybe it was legal, and what about technical?
I would say technical, there were a few technical challenges. I remember when the first tweet came out about McDonald's, everyone was ranting that the QR code opened an OpenNode page instead of opening an invoice. I mean, they got to start somewhere, right? And eventually, if you go to McDonald's today, you scan with a wallet, and it's a Bitcoin invoice, right? So it takes time to learn and get feedback from the audience. These people definitely listen to us. They're looking at Twitter. They're looking at people's feedback to improve their user experience. I mean, at the end of the day, they want to convert their sales, right? Another interesting technical came actually from the Shivo side. Things were very, in the beginning, where there's a lot of difficulties from the wallet, the Shivo wallet. Things were not working. Our clients were like, why are these payments not being successful? When in fact, in their mind, it was our fault, but in the reality, it was the Shivo part. There was compatibility issues. They were not adhering to the Bitcoin protocol. So like you mentioned before, we just had to adapt. We made sure that the invoices in El Salvador were compatible with the Shivo wallet, and eventually things smooth out.
I would say technical. Well, each client is different, right? So one of the things that I usually talk about is clients are used to a certain way of things, like when they transact in cash or credit cards, and they kind of think that Bitcoin is kind of like a credit card. It's more like a digital way of paying, and they're right, but mechanically they have to understand that it's a little bit more like cash, and because you're transferring value from one side to the other in a peer-to-peer network. It's amazing in some sense. And once they start understanding this, they start changing a little bit of how their process is and how everything's going to work. And one of the things that we've seen, for example, is that clients are used to having or buying or maybe even us providing physical POSs, like like a Visa thing, and that's not necessarily the way things should be done. And we've been like helping clients for them to adapt, and we understand the mobility issues and what they actually need for the business, and we try to adapt and create more solutions that are adapted for each client and their needs. And that's one of the biggest hurdles technically, them understanding this, but also, and I would say it's not very technical, but it does, it was a challenge on the banking side. Because most of the clients, remember when people here, and I can share some statistics on that, but clients here, they prefer, even though they're transacting with Bitcoin, they want their dollars, right? So getting their dollars into their bank account was one of the issues here. But I mean, once you start understanding what the logistics sides on how to get that into their local bank accounts, and how we've solved that sort of deals. It's amazing when they start, you know, understanding this and just adapting to what we offer.
Sorry to interrupt. I think to summarize, honestly, the integration was really quick. We're talking about massive companies that do thousands of payments a day. They actually integrate the technology in 2 to 3 weeks, which is pretty amazing for a company of that scale. So from a technical perspective, implementing the software, it's not hard. It's just like, how do you make sure that people can interact with the software? Some clients, like you mentioned, they might have their custom software that they need a little bit more work. Other ones just literally use a calculator and you're ready in 2 minutes. You know, it really depends on what are you using.
Yeah, as most of us know, El Salvador, before the Bitcoin law came to effect, is cash bash. It's cash for all. You know, there wasn't even a transition of electronic payments in a big scale. 70% of the people here don't have a bank account. Only about 10% have a credit card or debit card. So of course, we are in a time of transition with a big leap forward in a way. So of course, all those challenges are also cultural, I would say. But I think that, you know, given that it's only been 2 months since it came into power, then I think that, I don't know your perspective, if you think that lots have happened during that time?
I mean, definitely a lot happened. Could things be better? Yes. Are things bad? I don't think so. There's room for improvement. You know, things are not perfect. Like, at the end of the day, this is an experiment, right? This is the first time we're doing this at this scale. There's definitely issues, and we'll be here to, like, you know, fix and improve on those issues. But only time will tell, I guess.
Well, I think we sometimes fail to understand like how quickly all of this happened and what the results really are. Like when we think about, you know, that there are 3 million people onboarded onto Bitcoin or something, right? And that they can transact without using a bank, that's amazing. When you think about how Lightning is a relatively new technology, right? And it was basically in a lab for the better part of a year and a half or something. And we have now a real world use case where a country is adopting and using it for transactions. It should be mind-boggling. Lightning wasn't invented 10 years ago. It was invented 3 years ago, and we are using it for transactions. You can buy a coffee, for God's sakes. So, and it should be amazing. So I think the results should be super positive. I think we can surely improve, and I think we can learn from each other. I think, as the CEO of Bitrefill was saying earlier, like we're not competition. We're collaborating. We need to learn from each other, and we need to be better because of Bitcoin, right? Because we're Bitcoiners, and that's what we have to push for sure.
So you were saying that this is your first visit to El Salvador, so there's no real room to compare, you know, what's happened during the last 2 months, you know, about accessibility. Are you based here in El Salvador?
Us? No, we're based in Guatemala, but we do have a team here in El Salvador. And remember, we're a 4-hour drive away from Guatemala to El Salvador. So there's constantly someone from, you know, the senior management here in El Salvador for sure. So look for us everywhere.
I've actually been here before. We was on vacations, now not business related. I've been here for a week. I traveled the whole El Salvador except San Salvador, so this is my first time in San Salvador. I went through the jungle, through the lake, did everything else, and yes, there are accessibility problems. I mean, it's true, it's a fact.
The question was about that, what you have seen then on your different visits to El Salvador since the Bitcoin law came, how big you feel the acceptance is, if you see changes during that time.
Yeah, well, I think Bitcoin is becoming a more household name. Earlier, one of the questions was, and I think it's true, is you know, how people were perceiving Bitcoin, and I think it's slightly turning more positive, right? And I'm sure it has to do that in some senses Chivo has improved, maybe slightly, but it has improved in some senses. But it's also true that that Bitcoin has also grown in price, and if people kept their Bitcoin, then they should see some positive signs. And I think that's gonna keep on happening because remember, all of these incentives are built into Bitcoin. They're trying to get people to save, and people will program that into their minds and learn. When it comes to money, even let's say the people that are not really that weren't lucky enough to have a good education, they learn. The incentives are programmed into transactions, into money. Right, so I think it's slowly but surely improving in that sense.
From our perspective, obviously, I don't live here, so it's hard for me to like visualize that. All I can look is at the data, right? What we process, and yeah, I could say in the beginning it was mostly dominated, and it's still dominated by remittances. You know, people trying to send money to people here in El Salvador. We're talking about comparing to our previous volumes. We're lining grew like 10x in one day, just when the El Salvador stuff was announced. And now that things are settling down, we start seeing people like actually, buying like their meals, their breakfast, stuff like normal life stuff. So I think maybe that is an indicator that people are probably using that, like from a daily thing, some of them. But like I said, only time will tell. And, maybe in 6 months we could do this, and I can present some data, real data, that says people are using this or not using this at all. But yeah.
All right, and then back to your clients. What do they say now, a little more than 2 months after you have integrated with their systems?
Well, I mean, I think honestly the response has been pretty positive, and that is the reason why they see an opportunity to like replicate this experiment here in other countries. We also see some of the biggest players as well trying to actually to strategize Bitcoin inside their product offering, so not leaving the country, but like actually offer more services within their product suite catered to Bitcoin and Bitcoin financial services. So I think that's a good indicator, like something, again, as I mentioned before, that in the beginning was very risky. People didn't want to really touch. Maybe at the end of the day, if you provide a good experience, if you teach these people, if you educate these people, if you are with them along the way, they see the benefits that Bitcoin can bring to their business and at the end of the day to the people in El Salvador and other parts of the world.
I agree, and what we've seen with our clients is they've so the questions have changed. Like the initial theme was, how do I receive Bitcoin? Even though I want to keep dollars, how do I receive Bitcoin? Now the whole question, what their interaction has been, well, how do I take advantage of Bitcoin? What else can we do? How can we grow? And we've been working with some clients to do that as well, growing internationally, growing locally, giving them new options, and that's where developers and new technology from other sources is coming in to help and just give new ways of doing business to local. To the regular way of so for example, there are some news companies that are thinking on how instead of having a subscription-based model, how can you just like pay sats for an article, right? And maybe you can price that article depending on the length of it, or I don't know, popularity, stuff like that. So people are just questioning whether with Bitcoin they can change, or they can adapt, or even create more value than they already have. And that, I think that is one of the best things we've seen with our clients.
Okay, thank you. That's amazing that in only 2 months that the perspective has changed that much, that it's not only something that has been forced upon with the law, but now it's something it can be used for business development, maybe balance sheets, etc. So that's amazing. It's very good progress in just a few months. And in a big picture perspective, the whole world is watching El Salvador now. They want to see what happens here. We that are in the Bitcoin business, so to say, we are looking for what the next country is going to be, etc. Of course, that's impossible to predict, and that's not really the question. The question is, what do you think will be important or crucial here in El Salvador for this to succeed, mostly? Big picture.
Well, I would say maybe from a government side, from an infrastructure side, not be so secretive about who's doing what, because at the end of the day, we should be helping each other from an infrastructure standpoint. And it's I can talk from my personal experience, it's very hard to know who's handling Chivo, who's doing what. And I think that would be the first point to start with. I think it would be really useful to know, I don't know, like have a contact at one of these tech companies that is developing it and making sure we could provide their feedback, what is our experience with them, and, But right now, it's very hard to understand who's doing what. Everything is very, in a black box. I think I would change that. I think that would be the first step to collaborate within the ecosystem.
I think there needs to be a mindset change in some key institutions, some being the government, right? Some being financial institutions, right? They're used to being in the position that they're at. And I think that once they start changing their mindset and start adapting or even adopting Bitcoin much better, it'll create a transition, like a real strong transition into, well, now my bank is offering Bitcoin services. And people will banks and governments and other types of big businesses, they generate trust among the people, right? If you can buy a Big Mac at McDonald's, if they're accepting Bitcoin, then something must be going on, right? If my bank is offering me Bitcoin services, then I might be able to trust a little bit more, right? So I think that's it's going to happen. But these institutions, they need that mindset change and to offer it in a much broader sense, right? That's what I think is missing still.
Okay, thank you. I think that we've gone through the time perspective that I was aiming for, from before, during, and now. And I don't know if there are questions from the public.
Can I just say some final words?
Sorry, yeah.
So I just want to say, we as a company, OpenNode, obviously we're super happy and honestly proud to be powering infrastructure for the country and trying to give something to people. And we are committed to help other key players in this infrastructure, and I'm talking at Chivo if they want to talk, solve issues, we're here, we're open to help. And at the end of the day, I think we all want this to succeed, and to succeed we need to work together. But yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your insights. One question. Have any of your merchants reported improvements in the business metrics? So is there a significant impact on their business because they're accepting Bitcoin?
I would say it's a little bit too early to talk about it. It's been 2 months, right? We don't have, I don't say, enough data. But something must be going well if they're looking at offering services within this ecosystem. It's because they see value on it. But as far as of yet, I haven't got a report saying this saved us X money. I mean, it's definitely saving them money because the prices they pay to have this infrastructure comparing to their traditional payments are way cheaper. So they're definitely saving money there. From a service offering value to the company, we are yet to see that. But like I said, maybe in 6 months, in a year, we'll be back and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a great question, but I think it's the wrong time to ask it. We should ask this and look at this maybe in 6 months or something, maybe even a little bit more. And the reason I'm saying this is there is also a little bit of distorted information, right? Because the government, in some sense, they gave $30 to people. So right now, you might see a little bit inflated statistics on what the transactions look like, but we also have to take into account that people are receiving remittances. So the remittance effect, which is what I think is going to really improve the whole business statistics for retailers and for a lot of other businesses, it's starting to happen. It's happening, right? But we're going to see this in a much broader sense in the next 6 months, for sure.
We had a question over here.
As major payment processors, how do you see your relationship with routing nodes and plebnet and all of them interfacing with your payment processing?
That's an interesting question. I mean, at the end of the day, the Lightning Network, where basically that's the foundation, right? Everything are nodes. It's a peer-to-peer network, so those are definitely key participants that also help to make this network run, I would say. I can talk from our side. We don't disallow or have allow lists regarding to like who are we accepting channels from and stuff like that. We definitely have limits to those channels from a technical standpoint, but it's mostly because it's I would say the more channels you have to spend more resources, right? So you try to find a balance between payment reliability and how much you want to spend to spin that infrastructure. But we don't have any like block list or, everyone, it's an open network and everyone has their role on it. And the more, the merrier, the better.
Totally agree. The more collaboration that's happening, the better. In our case, I'm not a technical person, by the way. I'm more of a sales guy. But I do think that when we're connected, with more nodes, more developers, more services, what's going to happen is we're going to make the Lightning Network much more robust, and that robustness is going to be the base for the future, right? So we're glad to connect, we're glad to keep building, and we're glad to collaborate.
Excellent, thank you. One more question here.
Thanks. So my question is, I think we all understand pretty much like the Bitcoin part of what you do, and using Lightning as the rails basically, but I wanted to ask about like your experience with the dollar part of this whole thing. Like how are you dealing with local banks, or are you using international banks, or are businesses like really wanting the dollars, or are they keeping the Bitcoin?
So, I mean, I think it's pretty natural that as public companies, like the risk appetite, it's very different from a small business, So for now, most of them are keeping everything in dollars. We as a company did not have many problems at all to deal with the banking infrastructure because we've been doing this for 3 years. So it's a problem that has been solved on our side. Fortunately, they use dollars here, so perfect. There were no challenges there. But I can say that on our small, medium business size, there's a lot of people that just take Bitcoin and they do not convert to dollars. They just cash out their Bitcoin to their own wallet. And there are some that we have a service feature, an offering that allows you what we call a split settlement. So let's say you do a $100 sale, you're going to do 5% in Bitcoin and the 95 in dollars. Some of them have that as well, and that's a very popular feature that they use.
Yeah, as I was saying in the beginning, most companies they're still a little bit skeptical, and they want to keep their dollars. They want to receive Bitcoin, but they want their dollars. So in our case, let's say around 97% are still, converting their dollars. But the good news is we've seen, again, slowly, but we've seen some companies just starting to be much more open to receiving Bitcoin. And receiving, again, we also have a slider. You decide how much Bitcoin you want to keep. So slowly, they're starting to receive a little bit of Bitcoin. And I think, again, this is going to be, as time goes by, we're gonna see more companies that are gonna keep their Bitcoin, and that would be amazing. Yeah?
Just to add to my last answer, when I mentioned before that there are companies that are trying to expand their product offering, for instance, and add like Bitcoin services to their platform, they will hold Bitcoin to provide those services. So eventually they will have to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Public companies.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for this incredible conversation to close out our day.